So I am super excited and honored to introduce to you the man that very likely does not need an introduction today. Former NFL player, author, one of the most impactful speakers of our generation, reaching over 60 million people weekly through his videos and engagement, who Rachel Hollis and other leaders in this space refer to as one of the most authentic and powerful voices in the personal development space, and who I had the privilege and witness to grow personally and professionally over the past 10 years, Trent Shelton. How are you?
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. This is super. This is an honor, honestly. And I just wanted to give a little backstory on how we know each other. So we are
For
connected through
sure.
rehab time. And I think I was introduced to you by my sister, who started following you on Twitter almost 10 years ago. And I think that's when you started with a video.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
Amanda, who was, part of your company, I think she's still, I don't know if she still is, but part of Rehab Time, who lives in Arizona. And pretty much we became like the representative of Rehab Time in Arizona.
Yeah. That's
And
exactly. Yeah. That's crazy. It's crazy how that worked, but yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
yeah. So very early stages. And I have some pictures that I wanted to share that I had to go dig up. Go ahead and share them real quick. So
Oh my
right
gosh.
right here in the middle, the very first Rehab Time event in Arizona. And I think the theme was See My Heart, Not My Past, right? Like that was the event.
Yep.
Yep. And then on the right bottom corner is all of the volunteers that were there. And then the transition phase here, you on the right with the long
Dre.
and you came to visit. Actually, you and Jessica and D-Flow came to
Yep. Yeah, man. That was a really cool experience too. So thank you for that. Yeah,
visit.
it's crazy how it's funny. I was like, I can always tell where I was at by the length of my dreads. So like now I cut my dreads right, they're back shorter. So it's funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, and it's so crazy now to see the change in you personally, but also like professionally. Like I follow all kinds of different personal development leaders, and them mentioning your name and
Mhm.
seeing like the growth that happened over 10 years, which sounds like a lot, but really isn't a lot, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But we all knew that. We all knew that you were going to blow up. so, so speaking of Rehab Time, my first question to you is, can you give us just a brief backstory for the two people that don't know who you are, how Rehab Time came about?
Yeah. Yeah. So just to kind of start here, like I never like wanted to be like a speaker or author or anything. I mean, I played football, for you guys that don't know, professionally, even in college, but just my whole life was I was a sports, addict. That's all that I did since I was like 5 years old. And to kind of fast forward this a little bit, I made it to the NFL. When I got there, it was kind of like pretty much a nightmare. It's like, your biggest dream coming true, but you're realizing like your biggest dream is turning into your worst nightmare because it isn't going the way that you want it to go. So I was getting cut and released from different cities. And I mean, so much was going on in my life at that time. It's like everything hit my life at once. And I just remember in 2008, I remember I just got released from the Seahawks. Actually, no, in 2007, 8, 2009. So I remember 2009 because it was in March. I just got released from the Seahawks earlier that year in 2008 at the end of the season. And I just hit a point, man. And I wish I could say like it was some like thing that I mapped out. But for me, it was definitely like a God thing because I just remember being in my room and looking around at like trophies. At that point, Tristan was a baby. He was born. And,
Mm-hmm.
my just looking at just like, man, where's my life going to go?
Yeah.
And this rehab time just came to my mind. Like I didn't know, it wasn't like something that I like woke up with and was like, oh, this one really just literally came to my mind. And rehab for me, it meant, and I think the reason being because I played sports and I've been hurt, and I just know the rehab process. It's like it sucks, right? It's like hard. You have to go to rehab and therapy, and you have to be patient. You want to get back, and sometimes if you get back too early, you can get hurt even worse. And so I've been there in the sports world, and so but I do know that if you do the rehab process right, you will come back stronger than you were before you got hurt. And so I wanted to take that same mindset into my life, like into my physical life. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna rehab my life, mind, body, and soul. And so that meant for me, rehab time meant going to the gym. I would go like late night. So I was actually embarrassed because I knew if I went there during the day, I would get all these questions from people like, why are you here? Why aren't you at, Seattle, or like, what's going on with your life? I want to avoid all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go to the gym at like 12 a.m. I started books, and I was a person that never read books, like ever. Like I was like, I'm not reading a book for what? And I started reading books. Like I remember John Maxwell, Les Brown. I started watching YouTube videos, and I just started working on myself. And from my spiritual side, I actually dug in deep with my relationship with God and my faith to a whole nother level. And like that was the change that started rehab time in 2009 in March. And it just started snowballing from there. I
Yeah.
was living, as I said, rehabish for people out there. A lot of times we think we have to be perfect to make change, but I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But I can honestly say since that day, like I progressed, and I never looked back. And I think that's what it's about. And now we're to 2019, and the world now sees what they see now.
Right. But it's interesting because you said like you reestablished basically the relationship with God. Like you grew up in the church, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
when you joined the NFL, what happened then? Your relationship.
That I say like problem was I had a relationship. I feel like my relationship with God was given to me, which it's as it should have been, but it was given to me by like my parents, right? So like I always felt like it was their relationship. So I never actually, it was just like here, but I never actually, discovered my own relationship with Christ. And it took, me breaking down. So the NFL, obviously, even in college, but NFL, you have everything at your fingertips. I mean, anything you ever could imagine. And, growing up, that's what I thought success was. I was like, oh, clubs, parties, celebrities, women, like this is what success is. Cause that's what I knew by watching TV and being engulfed in hip hop and all that stuff. So when I got there, that's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And so when I was going through these hard times, instead of reverting back to what I should have known would carry me through, which was my relationship with God, and leaned on him more, I actually became more angry. I was like, why would you? It's funny. I think we blame God for situations we put ourselves in. And so like I was like, why would you bring me this far to forsake me? And why would I just became angry. So I was like, I'm not gonna deal with that. I'm just gonna live how I want to live.
Yeah.
And obviously that ran me right into a brick wall.
Yeah. That's so powerful because I didn't grow up in the church, and it was at my lowest point where I was like going through the divorce and all of that, where I was like, okay, maybe I should just give my life to God and see what happens, right? But I always believed in God, but I didn't have a relationship. I prayed when I needed something,
Yeah.
or when I was really sad. And then when I established that relationship, I went to it and I strayed away, and now I'm back. And it's like this building of relationship that you have to go through the trials and then consistently try to have to rely on him, right? When you have nothing and that's all you have, and then he shows up over and over again, you're like, okay, maybe I should just stick with this, right? Like maybe I should just be consistent
Yeah.
and honor what I have put myself through, and him still being there for me regardless of my choices, right? So yeah, that's super powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, jumping into what rehab time, not just what it stands for, but there are 3 R's in the rehab time book. Can you
Yeah.
briefly talk about what the 3 R's stand for?
Yeah. I'm always excited to talk about the 3 R's because I've done videos over it. Even in my new book, The Greatest You, like it's structured that way. Like a lot of people don't even know that unless I say it. But so the 3 R's is this, and I feel like with these 3 R's, it's something even I still apply to my life every single day. I feel like the rehab process is never done. We always have something we can rehab, we can better. This R stands for reality. And the thing that I love to say with reality, the quote that I use is, you'll never win your war by running from your battle. And so many times we don't want to face our reality for whatever reason, right? We're afraid. We like to sweep it under the rug. I mean, I was holding on to things that I need to let go of. I know I needed to let go of, but I didn't want to let go of it because I was afraid of what my life would be without it. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you never face your reality, you'll never live the life that you're supposed to live, right? So that's the first step. After you face your reality, the second R is release. And release is tough because there's things in your life that you have to let go of. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's your habits, sometimes it's your judgment on yourself, sometimes it's, just certain things. And I call those things bridges. And I like to illustrate it. If you look at every connection in your life, whatever it is, if it's a person, if it's a habit, a simple exercise you can do is ask yourself, where is this bridge leading me to? This bridge isn't becoming a better version of yourself. If it is leading you towards peace, then maybe it's time for you to burn that bridge. Because if it's leading you towards toxic and pain, the longer you keep those bridges in your life, I just feel like the more destruction you're going to cause. And it comes a point where you move from someone breaking your heart to you breaking your own heart. I talk about that a lot. So release is a big part. And the third R is repair. And repair, the definition I like to pair with repair is the only way to harbor true strength is to conquer pain at its deepest level. And so you have to get down to the root issues, right? So when you're repairing, you release the things that need to be released. But the best way I can illustrate it is, say relationship wise, right? Say somebody, gets out of a bad relationship, but if they never take time to heal, they never take time to understand, like, why was I in this thing? And they just get themselves in another relationship, there's a great chance that that relationship might not work out because you really didn't do the repair. And so get down to the root issues and don't solve things at surface level, because if you don't get down to the root issues, I can pretty much guarantee that those problems will find its way back to the surface. So that's how I look at rehab, right? I work through reality, I work through release, and I work through repair. And all those look different at different times in my life. Right. But that's the process.
And it's a constant process, right? Like this
every day
for the rest of your life, because there's always going to be some situation where you will have to apply that. The majority of my audience are women. I'm just recently getting more and more men that want to take part in my workshops, and it's like I have to create this workshop idea around that. I'm not just speaking to women, because this, right, the 3 R's should be applied to everyone, not just to women or men. But yeah, this is the number one thing that my audience struggle with, is actually feeling the pain, right? We try to avoid it so much, and we just we numb ourselves with things that we don't even think are numbing, but they are, like Netflix, all the dating apps and the partying, or even you segregating yourself from your family and stuff. Like, we have to actually feel the pain to work through it and get to the root. And they wonder why the same situation keeps repeating itself, because nothing was ever solved from the first one.
That's right.
Every relationship is a reflection of something that's going on within you. So you have to ask those questions, and people don't want to do that because it hurts. It's uncomfortable process. But you have to decide which pain you want to be in, right? This temporary pain, or the constant pain of repeating the same experience over and over again, because the pain is still going to show up. You just have to.
You hit the nail on the head. That's it. I think when people truly understand that, because that's what I get all the time from people, right? That's easier said than done, or you don't understand, it hurts. And I'm just like, the thing that I say that really strikes people, and it might be kind of insensitive, but it's facts. I was like, well, do you want to die unhappy? Like, do you want to live the rest of your life unhappy? And I was like, well, go through that temporary uncomfortableness, that of the unknown. Like, my thing was, when I was removing myself from pain in my life, it wasn't all, because I think a lot of times too, people are so afraid because they don't know what they're moving on to, right? The unknown. So they just stay in what's known. And so for me, what changed was when I say, you know what, I don't even care where my life is going. Like, I just know it's going somewhere positive. I don't know where it's going to end up at, but I know for a fact where I don't want it to be anymore. And so I just decided to take that step, and that's faith, right? Faith is, you trust God. You don't know what door is going to open. And literally in my life, I know for a fact there were doors that didn't exist that God opened. Once I made the decision to actually walk into the calling for my life. And so you have to make that leap of faith for God to actually, God can show up at any time. But I always say, I believe the power works even more when you show God that you trust him. And you're showing God that you trust him by stepping away from a situation that isn't good for you.
Yeah. And that's so powerful. And when you think about, you're afraid of what's on the other side, what's the worst that can happen, right? Like you end up in this place again. Like that's the worst thing that can happen, but it's never that. Like you're always going to move past and move forward, and something greater is going to come from it if
That's
you just
right.
allow yourself to do it. But yeah, super powerful. That's actually a great segue to my next question, which is forgiveness.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know forgiveness is important. We all heard that it's not for you, it's not for the other person, it's for you, right? But it's easier said than done. How do
Yeah.
you forgive someone that didn't ask for forgiveness or doesn't even apologize or think they did anything wrong?
Well, this is the thing, and this is what helped me. Like you said, all those things, understanding that it's not for you. The thing that helped me is, and maybe this is like a selfish kind of thing, but I was like, if I don't forgive this person, then I'm going to allow this person to control the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And they controlled so much of my past. I refuse to allow, or even if it's a situation, like for me, it was football too. Like even that weird thing was like, I had to forgive football because I saw it affecting even how I allowed Tristan to go participate. Like I started seeing like, man, I'm really not healed from this. And
Mm-hmm.
I started to ask myself, do I want this thing that controls so much of my past, or this person,
Right.
do I want to give them the power to control my future? Because if you don't forgive, what's happening is that you're giving them the power. And what's going to happen is you're going to make people pay for mistakes they didn't make. Like for me, I can name a situation where I should talk about it in my book, and I'm not going to say any names, but I was I basically stopped trusting a lot of people, especially in the business world, in this space that I'm in, because especially promoters, should I say, because I did events. I did an event with a guy that, make a long story short, the guy ended up stealing money from me. Right. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm not working with nobody. So any opportunity came, I was like, nope, nope, I don't care who it is. Nope.
Right.
And I realized that literally I was shutting the door on great opportunities with great people, all because of my experience with this person. And so I had to let it go. I had to take responsibility. I had
Mm-hmm.
to say, well, I didn't take care of the contract the way I should have. I gave too much trust. I had to take that. I had to take that responsibility, because if I didn't, I would allow that dude to control the rest of my life. So I took the responsibility and said it's on me, and then I released it. I said I'm never going to work with him again,
Mm-hmm.
ever in my. Wish him the best, but then it helped me open to more opportunities that were better for me. So think about it like that. Do you want that person or situation or thing to control the rest of your life and make people pay for mistakes that they didn't make?
Right. Yeah. And who is that holding back, right? That person or you? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
You're losing, right? You're losing. That
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and then as believers too, it's like, what another thing that helped me is understanding that I've been forgiven. It's like I haven't been a perfect human being. I've needed forgiveness. So who am I not to give the same forgiveness that I need, and that so I think if you think about it like that, like think about all the things that you might have done, that you're going to do, that, you know, that you might have wronged someone or did something that maybe was out of your character, etc. And
Yeah.
God has forgiven you. You want that same forgiveness. So make sure you give that same grace to people.
Totally. And it's like this is two parts for me, right? Like, is that part of like forgiving others because you're going to make mistakes or you have made mistakes, but also like I was holding God responsible for people in the church that were acting churchy, right? That had like certain
Yeah.
traditions and that treated people a certain way and were Bible thumping, right? And I just wanted to come into the space and be accepted and learn the word of God and everything. And then when I learned about churchy people, I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to have a relationship with a God that has people like this, right? Like, I held God responsible for that. And
People's actions. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's super difficult because me not having a relationship with him, I'm the one who's losing out, right? Like I'm the one, and I want to be careful by saying losing out because he doesn't really forsake us, but
Right.
I have to build that relationship with him in order for me to reach my potential and be what he wants me to be. But it's other people that put us through the test sometimes, and if we allow them, like you wake up with them on your mind first thing in the morning, in the shower, you go to bed, and it's like they have this control and this headspace that you don't even want them to have, but you can't let it go until you forgive, right? Otherwise, it's just a constant replay in your head.
Yeah.
and what you should have said and shouldn't have
That's
said.
a,
So,
I think it's a quote out there. I don't know the exact quote, but it's like, don't don't allow people to live like rent free in your head, something like that. Like
oh,
people can Google it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a good quote. It's true.
that is a good quote. That is. All right. Well, moving on to the next thing, and this is really one of my favorite things you said. I think you said it on Tom Bill's interview, and you probably said it in other interviews too. But that this is where I heard it. What are your thoughts around finding purpose?
Yeah, this is actually my favorite thing to talk about, especially. So let me let me start here. Like it's funny because when I was writing my book, I actually like redid that chapter because when I wrote that chapter, I was in a space at that time. I think it was like 2017 when I was actually working on that chapter, 2018, and I was like, I was all into and nothing like this is my opinion. Like I'm sure there's ways to find your purpose and whatever works for you. But for me, I started to realize that I was tying purpose to like things external. So like I was tying purpose to me playing football. That's my purpose. And I was tying purpose to me being who I am today. Oh, this is my purpose. And I started to realize like, well, when I lost football, I lost my life because I thought that was my purpose. So is purpose something that you really can lose? And I was like, I don't think that it is. And I started to realize when people ask like, how do I find my purpose? I was like, well, where are you looking for that? And most people are looking for it in the world, right? Most people are looking for it through position. I always say the three negative P's, right? Through position is one, through prize, another one slipping my mind, but or through profit, right? It's like, oh, if I'm not making this amount of money, this can't be my purpose at all. Like, nah, God wouldn't have me in this spot if I'm not gonna make money. Oh, if I don't have this title, if I don't have CEO or whatever, or no, this can't be. Or if I don't have the recognition from people and from man, oh no, I don't have a lot of followers or a blue check. No, this can't be my purpose. And too many people make the mistake in wrapping around that. Purpose, my take on it is not something you search for, it's who you are. Right? God created you for purpose on purpose. Like there's nobody like you. And so the more you understand that, the more you know yourself, the more you love yourself, you literally you start to realize like, wait, I can take my life into any environment and make it better, right? My purpose is not tied to literally in my heart. And so if I lost rehab time today, or if I stopped doing it, I could still affect people's lives off
Right.
camera, right?
Right.
And so I think when people look at it like that, it's a game changer because even if you lose something you care about, it might hurt, but you realize that, wait a minute, I don't have to lose myself, in this process. So that's just my take on purpose. I feel like it's who you are. It's not something that you go find or search for.
Yeah. No, it was a game changer for me. And it's weird because so my workshop, I've been doing my workshop for 3 years now, and it's always at the beginning of the year. And one of the quotes that is in my documents is, there's only one you, and that's your superpower, right? But then I did not associate that with you are purpose, but you have to find it. And it's like when you
Yeah.
said that, that was like a game changer for me because I was like, that's it. Like you don't identify with the thing you do, the thing that happened, anything that comes in and out of your life is not who you are. And with that, you have the power to let everything go, right? And keep moving forward. So I love that you are purpose and you don't have to look for it. And
And
it's
and I think, just to add to this, like I think what people, and I'll talk about this too, what people are searching for, like, because now it's like, okay, I'm purpose. What most people are looking for is like the placement, right? It's like, okay, where can my life be used most effectively?
mhm,
And obviously right now in what you do, right? It's like, this is where my life is being used most effectively. So it's like, how do you find that avenue? And I always tell people like that avenue usually is tied to those things like, your past, what you've been through, is usually tied to your power. Like, where do you feel most powerful? Like, where do you feel like when you serve, you feel most alive? Where do you feel the most comfortable, even when you're in the midst of your fear? Like, don't ignore those things. But the placement can always change, right? But those are ways to maybe find like, maybe, okay, I want to start a nonprofit, or I want to do this, or I want that. I think those three things, those three positive pieces can help you, put your life in the right avenue for your life to be used most effectively at that time or that season.
yeah. No, powerful game changer. And I think if a lot of people would shift that perspective and don't identify with the thing that they're doing, that that's not who they are, it would change their entire life and outlook on when they lose things, right? Whether they lose a person or the job, it's like you don't associate yourself with that, and that now your worth has left with that thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, there is actually two more questions, but I'm going to skip one of them. The What I also found really impactful was you were talking about how there's a difference between happiness and fulfillment.
Mhm.
Can you touch on that?
Yeah. This is easy to obtain. And I know if you're in a moment where storms are flooding your life, you're like, Trey, you're crazy. Like, I cannot obtain happiness. But you can find happiness in anything. You can find happiness in negative things. I found happiness in drugs at a point. I found happiness in, happiness works off of what's happening in your life, right? If things are going well, you're happy. If they're not, you're unhappy. And if you depend on happiness, then you're gonna live a very uh, up and down roller coaster type of life. And even to add to this, if you can't find the happiness inside of yourself and you depend on other people to provide it, then you're really gonna live a life that is probably very not balanced, because you're dependent on somebody to provide something to you that you can't guarantee that they're gonna give to you. And so joy, fulfillment, right? For me, it doesn't work off of what's happening in my life, right?
Right.
This is cemented. So with rehab time, there's times in rehab where I'm not happy. There's times where I'm stressed. There's times where I'm traveling, working, everything's on my plate. But at the same time, in the midst of that, I'm
Mhm.
still fulfilled, because this truly brings me joy, right? My family, like, there's times when you go through things with your family, right? They might not make you happy. There's times when my kids don't make me happy. I'm like, what are you doing? But I still have joy for them, right? I'm fulfilled. So that is a thing that I feel like it's a journey that each person has to go on.
Mhm.
And I believe it's about unbecoming a lot, like, especially if you get, 25, 30, 35, 40. Like, I think most of life is about unbecoming. It's about peeling back to layers and saying, okay,
Yeah.
let me not base my worth or my value on these external things.
Right.
Um, the question I had to ask myself at one point that changed my life was, if you had nothing, would you still be fulfilled? Because if you, and I can tell you this wholeheartedly, like, from a real place, if you can't be fulfilled with nothing, then you'll never be fulfilled or happy with everything,
Yeah.
right? Because you're dependent on those external things to fulfill you. So
Mhm.
that fulfillment comes from an internal place, whether that's a relationship with God, and just really appreciating your life. And so that's what really changed for me is that. And I don't look for happiness. If it comes, great. If it doesn't, just like motivation. Like, I don't depend on motivation. People say, what keeps you motivated? And I was like, well, I have my routines that can put me in the best place. But if I depend on motivation to move my life forward, my life will never move forward.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, and the layers is so true, because it's like, what do you define as a happy place, right? Is it something that was put on you? Like, what I found was like the layers of, you have to be married at this time, at this age, you have to make this much money. When it comes to that, if a person leaves you or cheats on you or whatever, right? Like, these are all these layers that are put on us, and that we have to like peel back and say that this is not who I am. This is not my happy place. Like, I'm happy despite of these things, right? So when my audience comes to me,
Right.
we're creatures, like, we need to be together, like we need to have companionship and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, you should, but the point is, you have to be happy with just being you, even if that means you're by yourself, right? Like, I've been divorced for 7 years, and although I'm in a relationship now, I was single for a very long time, and that's because I got married really young, and I identified myself as the wife and the mother and all of these things. And when that was taken away from me, I was like, oh, well, what am I now? You know what I mean? Like, who am
Yeah.
I? And I had to like figure out who I am in just me, without being married, without being the mother, without working where I work, right? And figure out where to go from here. So when the next person comes in and leaves, they can't take that with them anymore. So Yeah, the process of being alone and really figuring out what are layers and what is actually you is so important. And yeah,
That's key, 100%.
yeah. All right. Well, last thing I want to ask you, and it's not really a question. Well, it's kind of a question.
Mhm.
Like, what advice can you give my audience around how to move forward with all of the things that we just talked about? Like, what would be like the first step?
Yeah. So the first step is, man, that's a lot of steps I can do. Well, the first step I would say, is take responsibility over your life. You have to realize that nothing changes if nothing changes, and so you have to take a step. And if I'm you, I'm thinking about, okay, in my control, the story I talked about in 2009, like I was thinking about what is in my control, right? I started reading books, I started doing this and that. So like, what is in my control that I can change right now will, that might seem minor, but it will make major changes, residually, throughout,
Right.
a year or 2 years from now. So what is that? Maybe it's to get into a growth environment. Maybe it's to get around people because mindsets are contagious. Maybe it's to, leave something behind. Maybe it's to stop doing this. Maybe it's to read books. Just find one area in your life that you can control, that's in your control, that you can change and better. And I think once you start building that momentum, and once you start, depending on where you're at mentally, because most people are in a limited mindset. They're in a mindset, they're thinking this, watching this, they're in the prison perspective, they like to call it, thinking about easier said than done, or they think about all the reasons why they can't do it. So if you're in a limitation mindset, I want you to prove yourself wrong. Right? Anything that you can't do, I want you to go try it. Even if it's physically. So if you tell yourself, I can't run a mile, go do it. And if you don't accomplish it, guess what? You can come back the next day, the next day, and the next day till you accomplish it. And what that does, that builds confidence, right? It builds that what's impossible mindset. And once you get that mindset, then, everything else becomes, I wouldn't say easy, I don't want to say that, but it becomes a lot easier for you to move forward and conquer your life. So just find something that you can change and go after it.
Yeah, yeah. And you can always refer back to the thing, right? Like the thing that you overcome and accomplish. Like if me being married for as long as I have, then getting a divorce and getting into a relationship and it's over, it's like, I've overcome this before. I can do it again, right? Like, this is not who I am. I can do this. So it's you really pep talking yourself and making sure that you're your biggest cheerleader almost, right?
You have that leverage, and I love to call it, talked about in Tom's interview, it's leverage over your life. And so with me, like with speaking, people always ask, like, speaking is the number one fear in the world, right? People would rather die than speak. It's crazy. People ask, how'd you get over that? And like, you're not afraid. I was like, listen, like, there's days where I still get like, but I used to be very afraid to speak.
Yeah.
But I went skydiving a few years ago, did it, and heights was my biggest fear. And so I use that as leverage. It's like,
Yeah.
if I can do my biggest fear of skydiving, then I can go do this. Everything else seems small. So yeah, I think that's a great way to look at things.
I hate that you just said skydiving because that has been coming up for me a lot and I'm afraid
Do
of
it.
heights. And everybody keeps telling me you have to do it, you have to do it. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, there's no reason in my mind that justifies jumping out of a perfect plane for no reason. Like, but I get it. Like, everybody that has done it tells me exactly that. Like, if I can do this, I can do that. And yeah, I don't want to do it, but I think it's in my future to jump out of a plane.
You should do it. Like, I'm telling you, the feeling that you get, like when you, like, I don't know, it's just, I'm pretty sure people told you, it's a rush that I've never felt before. It's crazy.
Really.
And it's beautiful when you're up there too. So
I
once you
mean,
get over the fact that,
I'm sure. I'm sure.
yeah,
But my limiting mind is going to say
there
my
you go.
parachute is not going to open,
There
and
you go.
I'm going to be like this. No,
But you just said the fact that
I did
a lot of the fear, right? That's what we do with fear. We tell ourselves what's going to happen before we actually go make it happen, and it keeps us from
exactly.
doing it. So what
Exactly.
if you've been like, man, it's gonna be the best thing ever? I bet you go do it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try that. I'll put that on your. Will Smith actually said that he came to Facebook and he talked about his first time going skydiving, and he's an actor, so he went all in and like he made it so engaging, And he said something so impactful at the end of it. He was like, you know, everything is on the other side of fear. Everything you dream for, everything you
That's
hope
right.
is right on the other side of fear. And it's like, I know that, but so yeah, I'm making up excuses, right? Because I don't want to do it, but I will do it eventually. You heard it here first. So
I got you. I'm gonna hold you accountable. I'm gonna check in with you, make sure
oh
you do it.
gosh, I started something now. Okay, thanks. But no, thank you so much, Trent. Before we close this out, tell people where they can find you. Like I said, for the two people that don't know who you are, where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so just trentshelton.com is the website. Social media at Trent Shelton, Instagram, Twitter, all those things. And for readers out there, well, two things actually. My podcast, when they watch this, it'll be out. So people have been asking me to do a podcast forever, and so it's here straight up with Trent Shelton. So anywhere you can listen to podcasts, it'll be available. And then my book, The Greatest You, is anywhere you can buy books. So if you like to read, go check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, super amazing. All of your content, everybody follow him who doesn't follow him. And yeah, super grateful that you took the time to have this interview with me. And I'm so excited to see what's to come.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for always believing and rocking with me in rehab time. So thank you so much.
Of course. I'm a rehabber for life.
That's right.
All right. Well, talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye.